You need to turn on your mic there.
Okay.
This is official.
What is on? Hello?
There you go. So you've merged your program that was last year a 2-race win operation with Colton Herta driving. Now you've kind of folded into the Andretti program. Tell us how that's structured. I mean, a Cliff Notes version of how it's structured and how you think it'll change things for 2020.
It's structured more or less like our Indy Lights deal was. It's sort of a joint venture with essentially more or less being the 5th Andretti car, kind of like Brian's deal with Marco's car. So we're excited, and it's nice to kind of be back with the Andretti family. It's kind of where I first learned the ropes with 2 years in Indy Lights, and we feel like we can only go up from where we were last year, with especially being fully integrated into the Andretti family. Last year, obviously, having the partnership with Andretti Technologies. This year, having sort of the full support of the whole program. I think it's going to be a good one for us.
So if you're honest, was 2 race wins last year a surprise, or was that's what you expected?
At the beginning of the year, I think coming out and winning COTA was definitely a big surprise, and then Laguna was a little less of a surprise given that we had consistent speed for the first 16 races. So it's kind of a surprise to us to actually win any races, given our goals set at the beginning of the year. And so especially COTA being the second race of the year was a huge surprise. But if it's finishing 7th in the points, finishing top 10 in the points, we kind of just expected to compete for top 10s before we hit St. Pete, and that changed pretty quickly.
How do you think Colton is different this year in year 2 of IndyCar as compared to last year?
He's maturing a lot, and he matured from week to week. And you saw at the end of the year getting the pole position at Portland, and then struggling with tire wear, and then the next race at Laguna, putting it on pole again, and how he was able to manage the race, even from that race to race change that he made. It showed his maturity, and he drove a very veteran race at Laguna, and I'm excited to see sort of his growth continue, and to the point where it is right now for a whole season.
So at the end of 2018, I remember we went to New York and went to Yankee Stadium, and you were trying to, for lack of a better phrase, kind of drum up interest in the team. But I would think after winning 2 races last year and the success that you had as a team, it was a little easier to tell people about what the program was. Did you find that to be the case? A little more receptive ears? Yeah,
especially in the Yankee world, winning is everything. So if you say, I have a race team, and we're partnered with at the time, my karting, and we run one car, and so once we won, especially 2 races, it was much easier to sort of get people interested, because winning is everything in that world.
So we'll just open up to questions. I'm not going to pass the mic around. Mary?
You mentioned the difference in Colton between Portland, when he was on the pole, and Laguna. And I was really impressed with his ability at that track to manage the tires, because that was the topic all weekend about how the tires were going to wear down. And yet, he has experience there, but he seemed to figure it out better than anybody else. Do you know how he's able to make that adjustment?
I'm not sure exactly, but it was. I think he just learned from his mistakes. I think Portland, he had such a difficult time with it that he figured it out really quickly. He spent a lot of time during practice trying to right that, and obviously knowing that tire wear was going to be a big issue there, and obviously knowing what happened at Portland, I think he put a lot of time into figuring out how to get the most out of the tires, knowing he had the speed to be one of the quickest, and just figuring out how he could stay in the race for a full stint.
David?
Going back to Kurt's point about having easier conversations once you've proven that you're a winner, has that resulted in kind of like more sponsorship interest for your car this year?
It has. It's made the conversation a little easier, because, as was pointed out, winning, it legitimizes you, so you can bring to a potential sponsor saying that this isn't just a car that's going to roll around in the back of the pack. We've won races, and we can continue to win races if everything stays status quo. And so it's a little easier in sort of the introduction phase to kind of legitimize ourselves.
And saying that you finished 7th in the championship, obviously in other sports that doesn't sound so good, but the fact that he was a rookie and got 2 wins on the way to doing that, I mean, do you have to translate for them that actually this was a really astonishing thing for him to be able to do?
You do, and it's along a lot of the other things that you have to explain, especially to sponsors who have never been exposed to the sport at all. It's a big part of it, because yeah, you're used to stick and ball sports. 7th place isn't really that spectacular, but for a rookie on a 1-car team with 2 wins, I believe, if I remember correctly,
3 poles.
3 poles, and I think we might have been tied for most poles, or we'll have 4. And
No, you were tied for most
tied
poles.
for most. Yeah, so it just to show those numbers and kind of give examples of other times rookies have had that kind of success and what it's meant. It kind of puts it in perspective for them.
Bruce?
How much does it help knowing that your ownership situation is much more solid, the foundation is much more solid this year than it was last year, when frankly the last half of the year you guys were scrambling to kind of keep the program going?
It's very comforting, obviously, being brought back into the Andretti family and kind of knowing right now that we won't have any worries of putting this car out for 17 races next year. It shifts your full focus back to making the car as fast as possible instead of worrying whether or not we can even bring the car to the race.
Paul?
First month of May, I mean, you've been in Indy Lights, but how did your first extended month of May meet your expectations, and what surprised you about that whole experience?
It was, I kind of wanted to just sit back, and knowing it was my first, kind of take everything in I could, and it was a lot of fun. You know, I couldn't wait all month to, even on the practice days, get to the track early in the morning and sit in the garage and go out. I don't think I missed a second of when our car was out there, and I was even out there quite a few times when our car wasn't. So it was an amazing experience, being able to experience somewhat behind the scenes when I was younger, knowing Brian Herta and my uncle Chris Simmons. So being able to kind of be in the paddock, be around the pomp and circumstance of the whole thing, but to actually experience on the grid during the minutes leading up to the race, and then the drop of the green flag, it was a moment I'll never forget.
Did you and Colt, because you both were going through, it was your first month of May respectively, you guys are friends, or roughly, were you trading notes at all, or sharing stories at the end of the day, or anything like that?
Not really, no. We kind of just sat back and let each other sort of experience it while it was happening. And yeah, in terms of our person-to-person interactions, they didn't change much. We were the same laid-back, goofy dudes that we usually are. So it was, yeah, it was fun. It was a lot. It was just a whole month I'll really never forget.
Laid-back, goofy dudes. That's pretty much it. You have pink and green socks on. What are those?
Oh, they're salmon.
Oh, nice. I don't have those. Bruce?
So when the ownership group gets together, how does that all work between your side and the Andretti side?
It was good that we worked together in the past in Indy Lights. Granted, it's a much smaller scale, but the relationships are there. You know, everyone knows each other. Everyone's worked with each other before, so it was kind of just getting back to where it was then, and it became sort of a seamless transition. You know, the commercial departments working together, the operations sides working together, kind of just fell back into where it was back in the Lights days.
So who has the ultimate decision making?
Well, being that I'm 23 years old, I generally like to lean on Michael as much as possible. So I usually lean on Michael. So whatever he says, generally I'll take to heart. So I guess you could say Michael.
Good advice, Paul.
Does the attitude of the team change at all this year? You guys were the scrappy, one car, punch above your weight. This year you're part of a mega team, one of the power three? Does your approach change at all?
It does, yeah. As you said, last year we were the little team that could, I guess. And so being integrated into a powerhouse team, we kind of have to shift mentalities to, we have to feel like we are part of that established powerhouse. We have to feel every race like we're going in to win the race. And so in going into the season, we need to be at the mindset that we can compete for a championship. Whether that pans out or not is a different thing, but that's the mentality that we have to have going into it. So kind of joining mentalities with the rest of the Andretti stable was best for us because we feel that we're on par.
So you come in with a shirt that says Capstone on it. Is that the livery we'll see?
That is the livery you'll see at several races this year. Right now, starting in Birmingham, there's potential that you might see a Capstone livery in St. Pete as well, but we're not sure yet. But they stepped up big time. They were a huge supporter of us last year. Really helped us get through the end of the year, and we're really excited to see them back on board.
Nathan?
As an owner of a car with a very young driver, and with so many young drivers coming into the series, do you feel what kind of impact or change do you see the series kind of starting to go through with this youth movement that's coming in?
It's exciting, obviously. There's a new regime change in IndyCar as well, so it's kind of new territory in terms of the direction they'll take some of the pointed marketing and all that towards the youth. And obviously myself and Colton being in that demographic, we want to help as much as we can in sort of pushing that message and making sure that people of our age know how cool IndyCar it really is.
I hear you got a suite for all of us to go to the Yankee Red Sox game. Is that true?
Yankees, Red Sox, that's, I can barely get into the Red Sox.
We take Yankees, Angels or something, Tigers, you know, we're not really particular. Bruce?
One thing that I know is special to you is that you call it the Culver family, and now you got a Culver guy running the series now. So as a Culver guy, you were born in Culver, I believe.
I wasn't, but my father
Your father
was actually born in Cleveland and went to Culver, and my uncle went to Culver, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, we're a Culver family, so with Midwestern roots. So obviously.
So that kind of has to hit close to home now that Roger Penske, another CMA product.
Oh yeah, it's big for our family, especially because Roger and my grandfather knew of each other because the Culver Alumni Association is a very strong one. There's a lot of people who go back and support Culver, and so they'd had running-ins to each other, all because of Culver. And so my grandfather always respected Roger, always sort of pointed at Roger as that's if you want to get into racing, that's what you do right there. So for me, growing up, I always sort of looked at Roger as the guy to beat, and I still do. I mean, it's Roger Penske, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
All right, well, one more here from David, and we'll let George roam the halls.
Given the straight choice, Indy 500 win or championship win?
I mean, both would be pretty spectacular, but I think early on, I mean, the Indy 500 is the one we all want to win, and I haven't won one yet, so I think I would put Indy 500 first, but whichever one comes first, I won't complain.
Yeah, I hate to remind that wasn't a good, your excitement of the first green flag drop, but it didn't last very long.
Yeah, there's a reason I stopped there when I said the only exciting part. Yeah, it was pretty anticlimactic, but all the events leading up to that were really fun. But obviously next year's a new year, and we expect to be just as strong. And so hopefully we can make it to 500 miles.
Well, we'll put you down for 4 or 5 wins, run at the championship. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.